We're gonna make a buckwheat crepe, and I'm gonna fill it with some ham, some cheese, some caramelized onions. It's making my mouth water right this very moment. And we're gonna caramelize some onions first, because this is a ham, cheese, and caramelized onion crepe that we're gonna make. So I'm gonna actually start to caramelize the onions first, because it's gonna take a little while. And you can do these, days ahead of time. Tiny bit of canola oil, and then some butter. And I think a good way to kind of cheat a little bit is use just a pinch of sugar. And it will help the onions to get that caramelized color and flavor. There's actually natural sugars in the onions that they will actually caramelize, but the sugar will just kind of help it along a little bit. This is probably gonna take, a good 25 to 30 minutes. We've only had these in here for a couple minutes, and you can see the edges starting to get a tiny bit brown. That's the caramelization beginning right in front of your eyes. I have my batter recipe here. Let's make a crepe batter. 3 eggs, some milk, some water. I'm gonna put everything in the blender. So we have 3/4 of a cup of water and a cup of milk. Everybody in the pool. 3 eggs. Okay, so a 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour. I had another 1/2 cup of buckwheat flour. It's gonna give it sort of a nice nutty flavor. I love the flavor of buckwheat, actually. Okay, and then we need a little salt and pepper and 2 tablespoons of canola oil. 1, 2. Then we just blend. You see, it's like a very thin pancake batter. And what I like to do is let this batter rest for, at least a 1/2 hour, an hour or so. I have a crepe pan here, and a crepe pan is usually a very thin pan and a little bit of melted butter, just a very tiny bit of melted butter. We're gonna take our batter that we've rested, all right, and this is all in the wrist, okay? Try to cover the entire pan with one thin layer of the batter, okay? That's what you wanna see. While that's cooking, we're gonna just flavor our caramelized onions a little bit. I'm gonna take just a splash of red wine vinegar and a little bit of fresh thyme. Just kind of send home that Parisian flavor. And these caramelized onions, they're done. Okay, we've been cooking this crepe for about a minute or so. We're gonna take a look at what's happening here. Okay, it's cooked on that side, and we're just gonna turn it over. We want them to cook nice and evenly, so, medium heat. Even, medium, perfect. Okay, so here's what's gonna go into these. It's very simple. We have some sliced Black Forest ham. And then some Gruyere cheese, which is, a high-quality Swiss cheese. Let's take our crepe out. You see this? It just comes right off the pan. All right, and we just put it back here and stack them. And you can leave them out. You can cover them in plastic wrap. They refrigerate really nicely. Crepes are a really nice thing to actually make ahead of time. We're gonna grate some of the Swiss Gruyere. Okay, now we're gonna take our crepe, put it back on our skillet, kind of warm the crepe a little bit. As that's working, we're gonna take a little bit of our cheese and a little bit of our ham. And then, of course, we need some of our onions. And then we're just gonna fold it over. And you see it's getting nice and crispy on the outside, that's good. If you're walking down the streets of Paris, they usually put it in some sort of parchment paper or some deli wrap paper, just hand it to you with a napkin, and then you walk down the street and you eat it. It's great. Ham and cheese crepe. You can see the ham, the cheese, and the caramelized onions right there. See how nicely melted the cheese is? It's good. Now we're gonna make a Persian baked omelet. We have our red onion going here so far. Now we're gonna add all this, it's lots of green ingredients. So we're gonna chop up our spinach. The one thing about spinach is when you buy fresh spinach and you cook it, it melts away to nothing. It's crazy. I mean, you can buy like, this much spinach, and then it turns into this much spinach. It's unbelievable. So I'm gonna chop up some green onions, some scallions. Very healthy cuisine, very flavorful, but very healthy. So I'm gonna crush up a little bit of garlic. All right, let's cook. So we have our red onions and our scallions, some fresh garlic. Just gonna let the garlic and the onions cook for a second. And while it's happening, I'm gonna chop up some of my herbs, some cilantro, fresh dill, parsley, and some chives. You can see I'm using a big array of herbs here. You can use whatever kind of herbs you want. I mean, I wouldn't suggest rosemary because it's just such a strong herb. But, you know, get a lot of parsley going. Lots of parsley in Persian food. I'm gonna throw our spinach in here, and you're gonna see how this is gonna just kind of melt really quickly. That smells good. Onions and garlic. Not one kind of onions, two, red and green. Then we're gonna throw our fresh herbs in, and we're not gonna cook them very much, just kind of get them slightly warm. So we wanna retain the freshness of the herbs. Just kind of mix them in there with the wilted spinach and the onions and garlic. Okay. We're gonna take that off the heat, toss in a few pine nuts. I mean, if you don't have pine nuts, you could use things like walnuts, even almonds would work really nicely. So we're going to actually blend the eggs with a little bit of milk. And you can do this by hand for sure, but I just wanna show you like another technique. It actually is gonna whip in a little air into the eggs itself, so it might make the frittata or the baked Persian omelet a little bit lighter. Okay. And just a little bit of milk. And I like to put a little pepper into my eggs. I'm gonna pour the eggs over the herbs. Just give it a kind of a quick stir. Just mix the herbs in there a little bit. Sprinkle a little salt, and let's get it right into the oven. 350 degrees. Should take about 20 to 25 minutes, just until the eggs set and you take it right out of the pan. You can make it ahead of time, you can serve it family style, and you can serve it room temperature, so it's perfect for entertaining. And then we're gonna take our omelet out of the oven, our Persian frittata. So, wanna make sure that this is gonna come out, non-stick pan. Magic. Gorgeous. So we're just gonna let this sit for a minute, and you can cut it out almost like a pie. And it's still a little bit warm, you can see it steaming, but you can also serve this room temperature. And then a little bit of yogurt. Love these eggs, very simple flavor. Making a Texas toast, eggs Benedict kind of thing. I'm gonna start with some black beans. These are actually canned black beans, tomatoes. Let's cut up some chilies. Okay, and then some lime juice, some cilantro, and then a little bit of red onion, some salt and pepper, and I'm just gonna put a splash of extra virgin olive oil. Okay, this looks beautiful. Let's make the hollandaise sauce. I'm gonna take 3 egg yolks, okay, and then some lime juice. Just over the flame, very, very low heat, and then about every 15 or 20 seconds, you kind of move it away from the heat so it stops cooking, nice and slow. You can see the eggs are starting to get a little more pale. There you go, you see this? See the ribbon? All right, now I'm gonna slowly ladle my clarified butter, very slowly. Now I'm gonna take my steak sauce. It's a tomato-based steak sauce, and it has some horseradish, some chilies, some honey, molasses, maple syrup, salt and pepper. Let's get the ribeyes going. A very thin slice here. So I'm gonna pound them out. That's perfect, okay? Take a little salt and pepper and some spice rub. Tons of paprika and chili powders, onion powder, garlic powder. I'm gonna get a touch of canola oil. So spice rub side down. See how nice and crusted that is? That's what we want. And you find Texas toast, that's how thick it's gonna be. It always amazes me how people don't know how to poach an egg. And so I'm gonna use some white wine vinegar, Just, you know, a couple of splashes of vinegar. And the vinegar is actually gonna help the egg coagulate. I just take a ramekin, and to make sure I don't break the egg when I'm cracking it, just kind of spill it into the water and vinegar. You just want it to come to a simmer. Basically, if you can get it out of the pan, to me, that's the perfect poached egg. Just like that. We have our Texas toast. We have our steak. We'll take our poached eggs. Steak sauce hollandaise. A little bit of our black bean and tomato salsa on top. Sprig of cilantro. Let's start with a Southern Italian version of a crostini, and it's really gonna set our taste buds going for this European tour. So let's make the pesto first. When I first thought about making a pesto with jalapenos, I thought to myself, you know what, this is gonna be way too spicy. I like to use chili peppers for accent, not for injury. And so what I did first was actually roast the jalapenos. So we got a little char on the outside. It kind of mellows out the spice a little bit. I took the stems off and the seeds out, so all I have is really just the flesh of the chilies. And I left the skin on because we're gonna puree it anyway. And I want some of that charred flavor from the skin. And then I'm gonna take a whole bunch of parsley leaves, some Parmigiano-Reggiano cheese, just like a regular pesto, except instead of basil, we're using the jalapenos and some parsley. I love the creamy texture of pine nuts when they're pureed. Adds good texture to this. Crunchy and creamy. Some salt and pepper. And of course, some garlic. So we're just gonna crush the garlic out of its skin. Okay, so we have all those ingredients in there. We have one last ingredient to add, which is the olive oil. And then slowly add the olive oil. So it emulsifies really nicely. So we have our pesto done. You can make that ahead of time, get that out of the way. Okay, here's the soppressata. It's like a sort of a dry salami with some spice in it. We're gonna mix it with some onions and then fold in some scrambled eggs, put that on the crostini with the jalapeno pesto on top. I mean, soppressata is something that you're gonna find mostly in the south of Italy. Nice spicy flavor, very bold flavors there. I love that kind of gutsy cuisine that you'll find in the south. All right, so we're gonna let that begin to saute. And let's use a red onion. Why not? I'm gonna dice some onion here. So we'll have the soppressata, some red onion. Then we're gonna scramble some eggs. And you can see how this is all starting to come together, right? We're gonna have that crusty ciabatta bread with the olive oil. I'll cut it into individual crostini. And then on top, we'll have the scrambled eggs, very lightly scrambled with the soppressata and the red onions running through it, a little provolone cheese, maybe some fresh herbs, and I'm gonna top it off with, don't forget it, our jalapeno pesto. It's gonna remind you of being in southern Italy, but it's still a brunch. We're gonna pour some scrambled eggs right into the soppressata and the onions. Love that. And we have our jalapeno pesto ready to go. We have the ciabatta bread. It's gorgeous, nice and crusty, exactly what we want. And I'm actually gonna take this off and I'm gonna cut it. Just cut the ends off here and I'm just gonna make individual portions. All right, let's scramble these eggs. It smells really good. I'm gonna take a little bit of provolone. That will make it even creamier. I'm gonna melt the provolone in there and then we're done. Okay. I'm gonna put the scrambled eggs right on top of the ciabatta, the crostini. I'm gonna take a little bit of our jalapeno pesto. Just a little bit, don't forget, this is gonna have tons of flavor in it. A little bit of fresh Italian parsley, gives us some freshness. Denver-style omelet frittata. Okay, what's the difference between an omelet and a frittata? Well, an omelet I think about making in a pan and then folding it over and putting it on the plate. A frittata, we're gonna put it into a cast iron pan and bake it in the oven. And one of the tricks I like to do is actually put the cast iron pans in the oven first. We're gonna do that right now in a 400-degree oven, so they're nice and hot, so you get a little bit of that crispiness around the edges. I'm gonna start by making our poblano relish. All right, we're gonna dice an onion and crush some garlic. So some canola oil. And then the onions. So while the onions are cooking, we can start the garlic. A little bit of salt. The abrasiveness of the salt helps to crush the garlic. Gonna sweat our garlic with our onions so they get nice and soft. All right, so poblano pepper. I like to say it's a good starter chili because it has heat, but it's not overbearing. And what I like to do is to char it. You can do it on top of the stove, or you can actually roast them in the oven. And then what happens is the skin just kind of comes right off, just like that. But this is real, lots of the flavor for our frittata is gonna come from. So I'm just gonna add the peppers to our onions and garlic. It smells so good. All right, a couple more ingredients. Squeeze the lime for some acidity. And then some cilantro. You want a little fresh herbage in there for sure. Just kind of wakes it up, keeps it nice and fresh. A little salt and pepper in our relish. Maybe a splash of oil. The fun never stops. All right, let's get the ham going. And I'm just gonna start with a tiny bit of oil just to kind of get it going. Pepper. I'm not gonna add too much salt right now because a ham is cured with salt. If we need a little salt later, we can always add it. Let's get some eggs going. I'm just gonna do the whole dozen. A little bit of salt and pepper. Smells good in here, folks. Okay, 3 cheeses. So let's just grate a little bit of the Monterey. I mean, you'll see in a Western or a Denver omelet, you'll see cheddar cheese and Monterey Jack sometimes. So this is really classic. The Parmigiano is probably not so classic, but just gives it a little extra saltiness, just wakes it up a little bit. Okay. I'm gonna put a little bit of the relish in here as well. And we'll put the ham right into the eggs as well. Okay. Let's grab our cast iron. I'm actually gonna put a little bit of butter in the bottom of the cast iron. The butter's gonna melt. It's gonna get a little bit puffy, so we don't wanna fill it up too much. Basically about 3/4 of the way. And then I'm adding a little bit of the Parmigiano-Reggiano on top. It's just gonna get golden brown and give it a little bit of texture. And then we're gonna put these in the oven, 400 degrees, and they're gonna cook for about 10 or 12 minutes. And we'll have some mini Denver frittata/omelets. And while those are cooking, we'll get our croutons going. This is a good quality white bread. And I'm just gonna take the crust off, and I'm just gonna pull some croutons. I think they look cooler, and also you get like lots of crispy edges, and it's gonna have all that ham flavor. So we're gonna put our croutons in here. We're just gonna let them get golden in the ham fat, a little salt and pepper. You can see they're starting to get nice and brown already. Beautiful. Because we buttered the pan first, these should come out, you know, fairly easy. And we're gonna put it right on the plate, should come right out. There it goes. That's beautiful. And then we're gonna take a little more of our relish and garnish it. This is a little bit more, I would say, fancy, a little more elegant. All right, let's give it a taste. See, that's what you're looking for. Nice and custardy and tender on the inside, crusty and brown on the outside, a little bit of crouton. Really so much flavor packed into that one little frittata. If you tasted the relish on its own, probably a little spicy for most people. Now, it's got the perfect balance. We had that baked ham last night, so why not utilize some of our beautiful ham here? Smells like the holidays. So I'm gonna dice it up, crisp it up a little bit with a little bit of butter, and render a little bit of that fat off, and then cook the eggs in the ham fat. Okay, now, slice up some scallions. I'm gonna save a little bit of these eggs for the egg wash later. Okay, so now I'm gonna take my ham out. All right, I'm gonna add the green onions right to this, right before they're cooked. You don't wanna overcook them. You wanna undercook them a tiny bit because they're gonna go in the oven also. They'll keep cooking. So we're gonna take them out now. Beautiful. So we're gonna add some ham. and then some goat cheese. Fresh goat cheese. Goat cheese is nice and creamy, it's a little bit tart, and you know what? I had some left over. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here is just very gently fold the ham and the eggs together with the goat cheese, and then I'm going to just put it on a sheet tray so it cools evenly. I actually have the empanada wrappers in my freezer all the time, so the dough's already made for me. You can use pre-made pie dough. I mean, basically, this is sort of like a pie dough. It's just not as rich as, say, like puff pastry, or even like a pie crust, like a French pie crust. We're just gonna make these a little bit bigger than they are. This gives you a little bit more room to work. I rolled out the empanada shells. I'm gonna fill them with the egg, ham, and goat cheese mixture. But first, I'm gonna take a little bit of the egg wash, which is just, you know, whisked eggs with a little bit of water. And I'm just gonna go around the edges. You're gonna use your egg wash for two reasons. You're going to use it as sort of like edible glue for your empanadas. And then we're also going to put it on the outside of the empanada, and it will make it nice and golden as it bakes. You want them to sort of be in the middle. You certainly don't want to overstuff them, but at the same time, you want to make sure there's enough filling there. Okay, so now we're just going to close them up. All right, then what I like to do is take a fork, and this helps to close them even more. And you know, the pastry is just as important as the filling. So you want it to be nice and crusty, golden brown. I'm gonna take a little more egg wash. Just very lightly brush the egg wash on top of the empanada. This is gonna make them nice and golden. So I'm just gonna make a slit, a couple of slits in the top of the empanadas just to kind of let the steam out, because otherwise you'll sort of steam the pastry, and we want the pastry to get crisp. All right, so we're gonna bake these 425-degree oven, so pretty hot, and they should take about 10 minutes. I'm gonna make a piquillo pepper sauce to go along with that. Don't stress out if you don't know what a piquillo pepper is. It's actually a red pepper that's been peeled and seeded and packed in some olive oil from Spain. Now, they're just like roasted red peppers. They have a little bit of a bite to them, so if you can't find piquillos, you can certainly use roasted red peppers for the sauce as well. So we're gonna start with a little bit of onions and garlic, and I'm gonna take my piquillos. And the great thing about piquillos, now you can find these in lots of places, is that they're roasted, they're peeled, they're seeded for you already, and you just take them out of the can, and you can start to use them. They're fantastic. Add just a splash of olive oil in there. We're gonna saute our piquillos. We're gonna put these in the blender with a little bit of red wine vinegar as well. Think about it, this is gonna be the sauce for the empanadas. A little bit of red wine vinegar. I like to put just a splash of honey in here just to kind of chill out the vinegar and the pepper a little bit. This sauce is gonna be beautiful, but it's also gonna taste good. Slowly add the olive oil, and it emulsifies it, which means it stays together. Just a splash of creme fraiche, just gives it a little creaminess. And it's a beautiful sauce. And the great thing about this sauce is, you know, it's not a hot sauce in terms of temperature, so you can make it ahead of time. A little bit of cilantro, some garnish, and then there's only one thing left to do. It's brunch time. Eggs Benedict with apple sausage. I'm gonna grate some onions and the apple, and I'm gonna add a little garlic, and we're gonna saute that for our sausage. You know, we wanna get a lot of flavor into our ground pork. So I'm gonna saute these vegetables with a little bit of canola oil. You know, while we're at it, we'll give the apples a little cook too. It's really easy to make your own breakfast sausage. You just take your ground pork and just season it. A little bit of cayenne, some salt and pepper, some sage, some fresh thyme. And then I can take my onions, garlic, and apple, a little bit of maple syrup. I'm gonna put this back in the refrigerator, let all these flavors kind of get together. I'm gonna take 3 eggs, 3 egg yolks. I like to cook my eggs right on top of the stove in a metal bowl. Obviously, they're gonna get nice and light. We wanna create a ribbon when we do that, so that it all stays together. Now I'm gonna take some clarified butter. We're gonna slowly add to the cooked egg yolks so that they emulsify. If you add it too quickly, it's gonna separate, and really you're gonna have to start over. Add a little bit of lemon juice, a little hot sauce, some Dijon mustard, and some whole grain mustard for a little bit of texture. The mustard is also gonna thicken the hollandaise up a little bit. A little salt and pepper, We're gonna make our patties. These are probably gonna take about 3 minutes on one side and a couple of minutes on the other. Let's get the English muffins in the toaster, and then we'll talk about the poached eggs. You have some water that's steaming, and then you take some distilled vinegar, and that's gonna actually help the poached eggs coagulate. Just gonna use a little ramekin. Just in case I break the egg, I'm not gonna have to fish it out of the water. I'm gonna take a couple of English muffins, some of our pork and apple sausage right on top, and then we're gonna take a couple of eggs, our beautiful poached eggs, and then some hollandaise sauce. Put a little bit right on top. All right, guys, here we are. It's all about making sweet savory today. We're gonna make a French toast. Usually French toast, you know what it looks like. It's got cinnamon, it's got this nice sweet custard, it's got some maple syrup, it probably has some kind of fruits, maybe some blueberries, maybe some bananas, who knows what it has. Not today, we're making a savory French toast. Our French toast is gonna have some bacon, some Gruyere cheese, we're gonna have some mustard, some creme fraiche, some mustard greens, very, very savory, but still amazing dish of French toast. We're gonna start by cooking some hickory smoked bacon. Bacon is good for brunch. I know you already knew that, but I'm just gonna let you know it again. Gotta have some bacon. Smells good in here already. That smokiness is incredible. Now, what we're gonna do is actually let the bacon cook, and we'll keep the bacon fat, and we'll cook some other things in the bacon fat. So we're gonna let that go. While the bacon is cooking, we're gonna put together sort of like our condiment. This is actually gonna be creme fraiche, Dijon mustard, and a little bit of hot sauce. Well, you get a little creaminess there, a little bit of spiciness, two kinds of spiciness, from the mustard and from the hot sauce. And this is gonna be our condiment for our French toast. All right, so now we're gonna make the custard that we're gonna actually soak the bread in. So it's gonna be 3 eggs and an egg yolk. The extra yolk is for a little richness. Very rich custard for this French toast, savory or not. And then some half and half. Some grated Parmesan-Reggiano, good quality cheese. And this is gonna give a little saltiness to the French toast, but also it's gonna actually help to make the bread golden brown when we're actually cooking it in the pan. Let's flip our bacon. Nice and crispy. I think bacon just always has to be crispy. All right, so we have our condiment, our creme fraiche, our Dijon mustard. This is our custard for our French toast. And we're gonna get our bacon out of the pan. We're gonna keep that beautiful bacon fat. Let's get a red onion going. And we're gonna cook the red onions with some mustard greens. Mustard greens, that's what they taste like. They taste like mustard. They do have that sort of mustardy flavor. They're a little bit hearty. And, you know, I think of them as really good with things that are smoky, like bacon, for instance, and things that are rich, like some eggs. So I think the mustard greens are gonna be a really nice foil for this savory dish, this savory French toast. So I'm gonna toss the red onions right into the bacon fat. Here are the mustard greens. And they're, you know, they're very leafy. So I'm just gonna drop them in here, and they should really just kind of wilt. You can think about mustard greens as like kale with a mustard flavor. That's sort of the texture of what mustard greens are. Just a splash of cider vinegar. Well, we want a little acidity in here to go with the mustard and the onion. Gonna wilt them down. Just a little splash of honey there. Where there's mustard, there must be honey. So we have our mustard greens and red onions, cooked in our bacon fat with the cider vinegar. All right, so now we have all of our components ready to go. Except, of course, for our bread. So I have a pain de mie, which is basically a fancy French phrase for good quality white bread. We're gonna start by smearing a little bit of Dijon mustard and creme fraiche and the hot sauce mixture to give the bread a little bit of moisture and also flavor, for sure. And then a couple of pieces of cheese, some Gruyere cheese. It's a Swiss cheese. And I like putting it on both sides so that it melts on both sides, and then as it melts, it kind of holds all the other ingredients in the middle together. And then some crispy bacon, and you can let the bacon sort of fall out the end a little bit. Nobody will be complaining about that. Then we have our mustard greens with our red onions and a little bit of cider vinegar. And if you notice, I'm actually going all the way to the edges, so it's not just in the middle. And we're gonna close this bad boy up. Just press it down a little bit, and then we're gonna soak it for about 30 seconds on each side so that the custard actually goes, through the bread itself. All right, so we're gonna turn this over and let the other side soak. And don't forget, we also have the Parmesan cheese running through the custard, so the cheese, while it cooks, will get a little bit gratin, it will brown a little bit on the outside. That's what we want. So we're gonna take a little canola oil and just a little bit of butter. I'm gonna put our sandwich, our French toast, right in there. So, here's the key. You want the custard to cook inside the bread, and at the same time, you want all the other ingredients to kind of warm through. They're all cooked already, but we just need the cheese to melt a little bit. I can actually smell it. Can you smell the Parmesan cheese there? I know you can. You can smell the Parmesan cheese. It's starting to get nice and crusty on the bottom side there. You're gonna be very happy with this. Let's say we go out to brunch. There's 4 people at the table. I like to order usually maybe like a savory egg dish for my main course, but I always want something sweet on the table. And I always say, like, the table's hungry too, so let's feed the table. So I'll order some sort of waffle or pancake or French toast dish usually, and we just put it in the middle of the table, and everybody gets a fork and gets a little bit of that sweetness. And I think that's a good way to go. Gonna flip this over. Beautiful. Gorgeous. Making the savory French toast, you have to pay attention to every single component if you want to make it great. Amazing. Let's give it a taste. Really strong, robust flavors. Smoked bacon, that sort of spicy mustard green. And then the Gruyere cheese, just a little sharp, but melts really, really nicely. Kind of brings it all together. I'm loving the Parmesan cheese in the custard because it just gave the bread a really amazing crust and a beautiful color, just golden brown. A tortilla omelet burrito with pulled chicken and some salsa verde. Salsa verde, translation, green sauce. Tomatillos in the gooseberry family, they look like green tomatoes. In fact, they're not, but you can utilize them that way. All right, just quarter the tomatillos. And this is a sauce that you should just know how to make. You can make a fantastic green salsa that you can serve with, like, chips, for instance. And I start by making this sauce just like this. So this is a good recipe for you to have, period. If you want to get this recipe, just go to foodnetwork.com/brunch, and whatever we're cooking today, it will be there. We have some jalapenos and some red onion. We're just going to chop these up coarsely, and then a couple of cloves of garlic. We're going to put all this on a sheet pan with a little bit of canola oil, and we're just going to let them roast. And then when everything gets nice and soft, we can actually blend it all together. We'll put some cilantro in there. We'll season it up, and we'll have a beautiful salsa verde. A little bit of canola oil. Season it up. Let's get in the oven. 375, 400 degrees. Probably will take about 20, 25 minutes maximum. All right. Tomatillos, onions, garlic, and jalapenos. And they're nice and soft and roasted. It didn't take very long at all, maybe about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. We're gonna put this right into a food processor. Gonna put a little bit of honey in here. Why the honey? You have the spiciness from the chilies and you have the tartness from the tomatillos, so you wanna balance that out. We're gonna put a little bit of acidity with this fresh lime juice. Totally puree it. Okay. It's really pale. It's actually not a very pretty color. And we want to make this green. Now, the way to do that is obviously put something green into it to really kind of bring it out. And something fresh. So cilantro works really nicely. Now, the thing about it is that this is still warm, and we're gonna actually heat this up with the chicken. This is chicken that it's like store-bought rotisserie chicken. And we're just gonna cook the chicken in the sauce first. And at the very end, we'll add a bunch of fresh herbs so it really kind of pumps with the green. If you put it in when it's warm, it's just gonna turn gray anyway. So we're gonna take a little canola oil. I want my chicken to be pulled, but I want it to be in big pieces. It kind of drives me crazy when it's so shredded that it has no texture. You find that with pork a lot. Texture is so important. A little salt and pepper. We can pour our sauce over this. Slow down the heat. The chicken's already cooked, right? So we don't want to overcook it, and we don't need to cook it for that long. But I just want the sauce and the chicken to really get to know each other for a minute. And we're gonna make some chicken cracklings, or fried chicken skin, and this will give that sort of nice crunchiness to the burrito. And you already have the ingredient. It's like a free thing. Skin comes with the chicken. Put some canola oil in here, let it heat up. While we're waiting for the oil to heat up, let's crack some eggs. So I said before, we were making a tortilla omelet burrito. So basically, what we're gonna do is crack some eggs. So we're just gonna whisk this up. A little bit of hot sauce. This, of course, is optional. And we're just gonna pour this right into the... And this way, when we're ready to go, we'll just take one of our tortillas and dredge it into the egg on both sides and then cook it right in the pan. All right, I think our chicken skin is ready. There we go. And you just want to crisp up the skin. Chicken cracklings. Anything crispy and crackling is all good for me. All right, so they really take like 20 seconds. I'm gonna let them drain on a paper towel, and we'll just keep cooking more of these. First thing I'm gonna do is finish up our chicken by adding a bunch of fresh cilantro to it. And this is actually gonna freshen up the color for sure, but also the flavor. Little squeeze of fresh lime. So now, let's make our tortillas. So we have our eggs with a little bit of hot sauce and some salt and pepper. Dip it into the egg, see what happens. Flip it over. A little crusty on the outside. Puffing up a little bit. Gonna start by putting a little chicken in here. I love rotisserie chicken because you just take it home and then you can make a chicken dish in a split. Some of the cheese. We have some Monterey Jack and some white cheddar. They both melt very well. The cheddar's gonna have a little bit more of a bite to it. Squeeze a lime. And don't forget our chicken cracklings. This is gonna give the burrito a little bit of crunch on the inside. And a little bit of crunch is always a good thing. Fold on both sides. Fold over the filling. It's pretty cool. Let's do one more. Fold it up. A couple of limes to go on the plate. A little fresh cilantro. Maybe a little creme fraiche on top. Give it a taste. That's so good. The egg on the tortilla is a really cool idea. I mean, I love the flavor of eggs on basically anything, so especially for brunch. The chicken with the salsa verde and those cracklings, that makes all the difference, because otherwise it's all one texture. We're gonna make 3 different versions of an avocado toast. I'm gonna start by making the avocado base, just a few ingredients, some avocados, some scallions, lime juice, cilantro, and then we can pump up the flavor and the creativity with lots of different combinations of ingredients. First of all, let's make the avocado base. A little squeeze of lime. So I'm gonna add some green onions to this. I love the flavor of green onions. I love the pungency of it all. I want those bold flavors. cilantro, some salt and pepper. If you notice, I'm just going to kind of mix it once or crush it one time because we want that nice chunky texture. That's just my preference. I was the kid that when you were picking the peanut butter, I was always crunchy, always. So that's good. Let's make some toast. All right, we're gonna start making our egg salad for our first avocado toast. I have some hard-boiled eggs here. I'm gonna grate the eggs. You can actually chop them if you want, but if you just use the cheese grater, it goes really quickly, and I actually like the texture of it that way. We're gonna add some Dijon mustard and some creme fraiche and some shallots. So Dijon is a little spicy, the creme fraiche is nice and creamy, a little bit tart, and the shallot's gonna give it a little bit of crunch. A little salt and pepper. A little bit of fresh dill. It's got such great flavor. It's one of the things I like about like Eastern European food and Greek food. Just gonna mix this up. I'm gonna use the pumpernickel for this, which has a little molasses in there. Just lightly brush the olive oil on top. I'm gonna broil our pumpernickel. Now you can toast your bread in lots of different ways. I'm actually using my broiler. You can grill your bread outside on a grill or in a grill pan, or you can actually just put it in a toaster. Okay. I'm gonna put the rest of the toast in the broiler as we make our first avocado toast. Okay, we can start the avocado toast parade. And what I like to do is just put a very thin layer of avocado. Think of it almost like butter. Then I'm gonna take a little bit of radicchio. You'll see it in lots of Italian and Mediterranean cuisine. This is gonna give it a little bit of that peppery flavor. Then we take some of our egg salad. So pretty. And then I'm just gonna put a little bit of dill right on top of the egg salad. And it really looks beautiful on that pumpernickel bread, too. So this is gonna be smoked salmon, a little bit of dill with the avocado. So again, very thin layer of the avocado, and then a little bit of smoked salmon. So you have like thin slices of smoked salmon, and you just kind of let it drop into the avocado. Don't push it down. Paper thin slices. I'm gonna add a little bit of creme fraiche right on top of this as well. Avocado, smoked salmon, and dill. And we have one more to do. Who knew avocado toast could be so much fun, right? We're just gonna take some Fresno chili, looks like a red jalapeno. Just drop some chilies right on top. A little bit of lime zest. And then a little bit of extra cilantro. That's what you wanna hear. You wanna hear that crunch. There it is, the parade of avocado toast.